Before the pandemic, the number of people in poverty had been steadily falling for years. Now it's rising again for the first time since 1998. That's because all over the world, most people cannot go to work. And that's particularly difficult for people in poorer countries and migrant workers. To make it worse, food prices are going up. There are major disruptions to supply, and without labourers, crops are being left to rot in the fields, from the US to India to the Philippines. King's College London estimates the number of extremely poor people globally could increase by 420 million over the next several months. Let's speak now to Jayati Ghosh in New Delhi. She's the chairwoman of the Centre for Economic Studies and Planning at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Jayati Ghosh, welcome to the News Hour. Are we talking here, just to be clear, about people actually tipping over into what you would label as being starvation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're talking about extreme destitution. In India, for example, what we call poor is actually what in any other country would be called extreme destitution. There are people who cannot afford to eat enough. And we estimate that that number would have at least doubled, at the very least, over the past 2 months.
OK, so people need food as quickly as possible, but they also need cash transfers as well, I guess, because local economies, micro economies, they have ceased to exist. They've gone and they're probably not coming back.
That's right. Yes, in fact, there's a very real concern, you see, because it's certainly we need major efforts on the food front, because there's going to be massive increases in hunger. But right now, the big concern is to give people purchasing power, to give them something to make up for the loss of livelihood over the last 2 months. Immediate cash transfers for about 3 months to all the informal workers who have all lost wages, lost livelihoods, and immediate efforts to make sure that the minimum that they need for survival is available to them.
OK, you're talking about big cash transfers. If you look at a country like India, you're talking as well about a sizable percentage of the population who don't have a bank account. How do you do that securely? And how do you trust everyone in the chain between a bank handing out cash and people getting the cash perhaps hundreds of miles away?
Well, you know, there are various ways of doing this, and you have to exercise ingenuity. You can, of course, do bank transfers where you can access the bank to people. But there are many innovative ways that state governments have thought of. In Odisha, pension payments are distributed in public every week in front of everyone. And there's a system of indelible ink to ensure that those people cannot come and get it twice. So you have to actually rely, because we are in a time of extreme emergency. We cannot just depend on the existing structures. They won't be adequate. So we have to think of innovative ways. Many of the local governments have actually worked out ways of doing this. But we need to have a central government that has the vision to actually go out there and spend this money. Immediately, we need 2 to 3% of GDP being spent on just providing this basic income for a few months.
Is the federal government doing this to any degree at all as of now?
No, unfortunately, that's the shocking thing. The central government has been completely inactive on this. The amount of fiscal stimulus that has been provided is less than 1% of GDP. And it's really not reaching the people. We are seeing such extreme cases of humanitarian catastrophe and tragedy. Migrant workers trudging for hundreds of miles, children dying on the roads, women giving birth on the roadside as they try and travel back to their homes, to face starvation even there. I mean, we are seeing incredible humanitarian tragedies, and we need to do something urgently.
If you get this, if the federal government, if the national government, Narendra Modi's government, does something approaching this across the country, so it's not just down to individual states, how long is long enough to begin to scratch the surface so people have enough food to eat, to stay alive, they have enough cash in the bank or not in the bank, in their pockets to buy food? I mean, are we talking about a month or 6 months or a year?
Well, first of all, you see, food, we already have a functioning public food distribution system. The government is sitting on 50 million tons extra surplus food stocks, which they should just distribute immediately for free, 10 kilograms per person per month. It can be done. The infrastructure's there. You just have to make the food available. No one can understand why they're not doing that. That should be done for 6 months, I would say, the free food, because we have enough stocks. It's all lying there. These are surplus stocks. The cash transfers, I would say 3 months, and then move into a food for work program or an employment program. We already have a rural employment guarantee. I would say we make that something universal, offer it to every adult, not 100 days per household, but maybe 200 days. And extend that to urban areas as well. Because initially we need to give them food and some basic income, but eventually we should work to an employment guarantee.
Does this chime with the similar situations that we see in countries like South Sudan, countries like Yemen, where, we report on this channel a lot on what's going on in the Yemeni conflict, and for a good 2 years now we've been saying the country's on the brink of starvation. It already had an issue with cholera. I can't imagine that it would be easier for the Yemeni administrations to bring in the kind of system that you're talking about compared to India.
No, I think that Yemen is in fact a particular tragedy because it's also been ravaged by conflict, by war, and by all of the other diseases that you've mentioned, in a situation of extreme poverty and fragility. And so, yes, many of the existing structures don't exist and will have to be created. But nonetheless, there is scope for immediate provision of cash, at least, to enable people to use the market to buy the essentials, if nothing else.
OK, we have to leave it there. Jayati Ghosh, thank you so much for your time.